Hello, Composition 1 students. I want to walk you all through some ideas and then examples for writing in the third person. This is something that you will be doing in Essay 4. You can, of course, have one paragraph that has a personal example in it, but generally in all those other body paragraphs, and especially in your thesis, you want to be writing in the third person. So what does it mean to write in the third person? To write without using any forms of I, you, or we. Oops. So this includes mine, me, yours, obviously you, let's say yourself, ours, etc. So how do we go about doing that? Well, first off, why is it important to avoid I in college writing? It is academic convention to avoid the use of I. Your name is at the top of the paper. We know those ideas are yours, right? But instead of saying things like, in my opinion, simply make the claim and then back it up. Tactics for getting rid of I. Most of the time, just delete it and you should be good. We'll look at some examples of that in a moment. But for example, if we had in my opinion, oh goodness. Let's see, in my opinion, hip-hop does not cause violence. You can see that's kind of a broad, weak thesis, especially when you take out that in my opinion. Whoops. Then all of a sudden you have to make it stronger, right? It almost forces you in a way to back up your point with evidence more, because you're not just saying, well, in my opinion, right? You're stating it like it's true, and then you're backing it up and showing why it is true. All right, so moving on. Why is it important to avoid you and we in college level papers? Using words like you and we make certain assumptions about your audience. My favorite example of this that I get in OWL papers a lot are sentences like this. When you do drugs, you hurt not only yourself, but your family and your community. So this sentence, right, is making an assumption about me as a reader. They're assuming that I have done drugs. And so, when you use words like you and we, you are making certain assumptions about your reader, and that's just generally not good form. It's also usually academic convention to avoid you and we unless asked to specifically use it by a teacher. Tactics for getting rid of you and we. Get more specific, right? So ask yourself what group of people you are talking about. So it could be readers, right? The audience. Maybe it's Americans, maybe it's consumers, but get specific. And it could kind of depend on your topic too. Like maybe you are talking about homework, and so you find yourself talking about students and teachers, right? Or maybe you are talking about, let's see, like healthcare. So you might use word like patients, providers, things like that. So instead of using you and we, ask yourself, who is it that I am talking about? Getting rid of you and we will most likely better your wording in general because it will force you to name those specific groups. Okay, I'm going to go through and do a little bit of practice. So in his book, The Shallows, Nicholas Carr claims that we are using our screens too much and this is hurting. So we could say modern people, right, are using, and then we just change the hour to there, and this is hurting their ability to more information. Our minds are amazing things. So here we just get more specific, right? The human mind, I'll just change it to be singular, is an amazing thing. All right, as Carr notes, the human brain has both working memory and long-term memory. I think you'll already notice as I go through how much more astute these sentences sound, right? They sound higher level when I'm forcing myself to get more specific. All right, let's see. So that one was right? We used to think of long-term memory like a storage place for facts. Who, right? Was that everyday people? Does everyone sit around thinking about long-term memory as a storage place for facts? No. It's experts, and we could even get really specific and say like neuroscientists, right? We could just say scientists or researchers, that would be fine too. As Carr shows, long-term memory is actually more important than that. Long-term memory gives depth and richness to our thinking. Now this hour is in the quote, so no need to worry about that. What do we want to say? Humans? We are kind of talking about them more scientifically, and you'll notice I've used human up here. It allows me to set a certain tone, right? Okay. However, as Carr goes on to argue in the chapter, the internet hurts a person's long-term memory because they are inundated by too much information, so their brain I know there's been some debate over the singular there and they. I think that debate is pretty much done. The Oxford English Dictionary accepts it, as do most general dictionaries. So I think we can be safe using there instead of having to type out he or she, which is obviously exclusive of some people as well. So I find this very interesting because as a student I have to remember lots of information. Okay, so in this gets a little bit trickier to get rid of the I, right? But so think about why, again, get specific. So it's because I'm a student. This information is especially helpful to students because they have to remember lots of information for tests. So if they, are interrupting themselves with too much information, it could make it harder for them to study. And we'll just remember, we don't want to rely on they too much, right? So if students can learn how to focus and allow the information they are learning to be transferred from long-term memory, this could make their studying a lot easier. There we go. So not too much effort, right, to go through and change that. All right, so if you have a lot of that in your rough drafts, I will be directing you to look at this page, or this lecture rather, and I think that about covers it. If you have any questions before you take the quiz, let me know. Thanks a bunch, guys.